Then and now, we got the crown when we rock the town. Hot sound, keep us breaking ground while we chillin' lounge. 3 generations, black nerd soldiers, podcast snipers trying to pop culture. Allegedly, haters try to talk, but a pedigree in rare form.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
You're listening to the Then and Now podcast.
This is an interesting episode because we are down a co-host. We are doing a mean throwback episode with just myself and Professor E. King of the Comics, Ethan Murphy. For people that are new to the pod, this is the Then and Now podcast, the podcast where we tend to talk about nerdy things from generational divide perspective. I am Captain Diesel, and I have, again, like I said before, Professor E. King of the Comics, Ethan Murphy. Usually, Lelouch V, the Kratos of Gaming, is usually here with us, but he had some prior obligations that he had to knock out. So y'all getting a throwback episode today. It's just the two of us, back to the roots of the pod.
That's right.
How you feeling, though? Not you. Oh, my gosh. How you feeling, E?
whatever later it is. I'm good. I'm feeling old, man. I'm feeling old. Like, you know, it's my birthday this week, which means I'm literally old enough to be your dad's dad. So I am hanging in there, man. I'm hanging in there. How you living?
I'm good. I've been feeling great, man. Been, getting back to the dieting thing, doing hot yoga again, so my body feels a little bit better. Trying to sleep a little bit. Content, everything's going okay so far.
Right.
The pendulum's gonna shift at some point, but right as of now, we're good. We're good.
Gotcha. Yeah, plus I noticed your beard game's getting a little strong there too. Get nice clean line, that beard game.
I was homeless for a little bit, but I had to get right so I could record this video essay here in a little bit.
That's what's up, man.
That all being said, y'all, we have a lot to discuss today. Not going to be a crazy long show, but we have two topics that I feel like are very important to get into. One of which is some drama, because y'all know we have to cover some of the nonsensical, unemployed news on the internet. One of which being the more recent Lanterns trailer that was released. I'm not going to play it because I don't want to deal with editing out copyright stuff. But for people who are not familiar, you guys can look that up really quickly. But Tuesday, I believe, the Lanterns trailer was leaked. Apparently it was leaked, but it seems as though DC themselves leaked their own trailer, which I'm starting to get annoyed with. I think Marvel said their trailers were leaked, but I'm like, bro, you don't have that many trailers leaked back to back like that. They were literally leaking their own stuff for the media cycle, in my mind at least. But the leaking of the trailer wasn't what was controversial. What was controversial was the content of the trailer. A lot of people were not really thinking highly of this show off of two reasons. One, people thought it was boring. Some people thought the trailer was boring. They are not fans of grounded heroes, which to an extent I can understand when you're dealing with characters who are used to being bigger than life and being into interstellar space cops. It's a little... I could see how it's a little boring having them restricted to Earth when they're supposed to be interstellar cops, not dealing with aliens at all. I can get that. The biggest point of contention, though, was one surrounding the idea that they don't have green ore around them when they were flying. We saw one quick, 0.5 second snippet of Hal Jordan flying away or flying off in the trailer, but he flew off without any kind of green ore around him. For a trailer about the Green Lanterns, there's a significant lack of green within the trailer. E, are you privy to any of this news for the most part?
Yeah. I mean, there are all kinds. Of course, we always have hot takes about everything under the sun. And they mentioned, I think you mentioned it too, as far as when Hal flew off, played by Kyle Chandler at the very end, there wasn't any green ore or whatnot. I was like, yeah, I got you, that's fine. But the last time we really saw the Green Lanterns, I know we saw them in Zack Snyder's the Snyder cut of the Justice League movie, but last time we really the movie was when Ryan Reynolds played him, and that movie was terrible. And it's because they look like Fortnite characters running around in that green stuff. So for me, having a little more grounded makes a little more sense. It's a little more approachable. It doesn't look so it's over the top and it's just nonsense. I get it though. I get that them being in a little podunk town when they're intergalactic cops can be kind of antithetical to what you want from that type of a world or those heroes. That's fair. That's perfectly fair. But I like the idea that they are more grounded in the sense that you can actually relate to them more. Actually, that it's more character driven, and they have two really good actors in it too, portraying them. So for me, it's still a win. I told you before I was excited about it, but for me, that's kind of the stories I like to watch. That's the kind of show into. I understand that for some folks who are bigger fans of the comics too, that it's because it's not as over the top. It may not work, and that's to each their own.
And I understand it. I think for me, to an extent, I understand the idea of why it's grounded. Because again, this is a show, not a feature film, so you don't have the budget for the CGI it required to make the suits and all the constructs look very good. And I'm going to assume and guess that like we're not going to see little to any constructs in this show, which again is something that will probably irritate me a little bit. So for the most part, I lean on the side of I know this is going to be a good show. I know this is going to be shot cinematically well. I know this is one that's going to be written very well. The acting in it is going to be done very well. But for me as a Green Lantern fan, a lot of other people as Green Lantern fans and fans of the mythos, I understand why there's irritation because I have a certain amount of irritation in my own right. Because to your point, I think when I'm looking at what makes James Gunn's DCU so enticing to a lot of fans is that it's very much so taking a hard turn away from superhero content of old, where it's a lot of grounded, dark, gritty stuff. And this seems to be more in line with the energy of comics originally, where it's a lot of fun, bigger than life characters who are bright, vibrant, and like symbols of hope for the most part. For their livelihoods. And that's what I loved about Superman. And that's what I liked about the Green Lantern presentation of Guy Gardner in Superman. So when I look at this show and I'm like, okay, we going from the essence of what comics were, or at least originally were, when you're looking at like some of the origins of them and even some of the more younger oriented stories. And we're jumping into something dark and gritty, like a cop drama. It can work because I think that's been shown primarily in something like Absolute Green Lantern as of late, where it's pretty much a very similar story or a similar setting and tone in regards to taking place in one small town, one small setting, and characters trying to figure out what's going on, at least for the first like 5 to 8 issues for the most part. It's tough. It's tough. Now, again, I would lean on the side of wanting things to be more interstellar. I'm cool with things starting on Earth, but again, it would just... The idea that these are space cops who deal with aliens on a daily basis and there, as of now, seem to be no aliens in the trailer. I'm just, I don't know. And then we're also having people, there are a lot of nitpicks though. I will say this, because there are nitpicks that people take in regards to one, first and foremost, people talking about how Hal doesn't really like speaking to the other aliens because he doesn't understand them, which is doesn't make sense when you're looking at the fact that the rings are universal translators. Yeah. It's just like a bunch of little things that I think people are picking apart that I ask of you to be patient. Because although a trailer is giving you a snippet of what a show will be, you have no idea what is going to happen if it's a good made trailer. Like you have an idea of the tone of the show, the energy that they're going to be going for, and some of the plot beats for the most part. But the show in itself and all the twists and turns and surprises and things that are going to be seen will be had in the actual show. So I don't know. It's this weird balance of me telling people to not take things too serious and not take trailers too serious. But at the same time, I can understand why you're using the trailer as a barometer of how the show is going to be for you.
Right. And that's the thing. You hit the nail right in the head there. It's a trailer. It is. If this is meant to be, I'm not sure probably what, I'm guessing at least 8 episodes for the show. You probably saw maybe 5 minutes or, I mean, we may have only seen it from snippets from maybe 1 or 2 episodes total. We have no idea what the show's actually going to have in it. For all we know, the show could, of course, have them going into space. It could actually, of course, have them fighting against an alien. And then, there's a part in the trailer where Hal Jordan said, or I guess John Stewart says, "I've been training you for 2 months and haven't won the ring yet." So, I mean, I can't imagine they have the whole show with John Stewart not wearing his ring, or say with Hal Jordan.
That would be insane. That would be insane.
That's stupid. There's even a weird part. Some part that kind of tripped me up was there's a part where it shows them, like it shows the actual Green Lantern like outfit like hanging in a closet. I thought the whole Green Lantern outfit that's something that they actually already had.
It's a construct,
they put the ring on, it kind of popped onto their bodies essentially. So I didn't know how. I don't know how all the rules.
Well, I think that's a thing that starts with Hal Jordan. I think for the most part, if I look at Alan Scott, because people keep in mind Hal Jordan isn't the first Green Lantern.
He's a different outfit altogether, though. Yeah, the blonde dude, Alan Scott.
Yeah, Alan Scott is the first. He's the first Green Lantern. I know his costume was like a physical costume that he put on. I think the idea of like the construct, the costume being a construct, came in later with Hal when he took it over from Abin Sur. But we'll see. Again, a lot of this stuff, for whatever issue you have, you can find some standoff, one-off comic that has it in the version that you enjoyed that'll like you can use as confirmation bias. Because even in the whole idea of like, oh, the Lanterns need the green aura to fly around and whatnot, people found plenty of other issues and explanations that said they don't need it. in different comics. So again, you can go different continuities, different stories, different whatever it may be. Different writers will change things up based off of what their vision is and what they want the character to be. But I looked it up really quickly, and it is a 8-episode confirmed series. So we'll see 8 episodes for this.
Yeah, I mean, it'll get into it. I'm not too worried about it, honestly. And we talked about this last time as far as how like different generations takes on different characters over the years. I mean, Green Lantern's been around for forever, basically. And so there's been so many different iterations. Like you mentioned, Absolute Green Lantern is very different than from like, back in the day of when Hal Jordan was losing his mind and becoming Imperiax and everything else, that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of different stories. Alan Scott as well with his whole pop collar and look he was in the 70s. It's a very there's different ways you can approach these different characters. Even in the trailer itself, I mentioned how Hal mentioned the idea of a flying squirrel that's actually a Green Lantern. That's very different. So it's what's that dude's name, Dev? The one that was featured in one of the animated movies. He was he was a little dude that made the first like actual hard construct. He was a little alien. He was almost like a small child. He wasn't a child, but he looked like a small child.
He made his first construct. He made the first construct. You said?
He actually was able to form the first hard like construct with his ring, essentially. And it was like during a war, and they had it in an animated movie. It's an anthology animated movie series, essentially, but it showed him.
It's about Emerald Knights. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that little guy.
I can't remember. Not Tomar. That's not Tomar. You said a little child.
Tory was the one that passed away. But the point of it is though is that see, you watch Emerald Knights, for example, you see that it's said what it's meant to be seen in a way is that it's the idea of seeing how each Green Lantern approaches the world differently. So I like the idea of seeing this is how two Americans more or less would approach the world of Green Lantern, especially with the writer himself or the directors, how people portraying these Green Lanterns would be different than other people portraying the Green Lanterns in a different story, in a different world. So I'm here for that idea, here for different interpretation. That's just me.
Yeah, I'm not too, again, this is one of those situations where I know the show's going to be good. I'm more so just worried about how it fits into the world because I'm trying to understand like when this takes place. Because I know, at least I know comic book wise, Guy Gardner was brought in before Hal. Not before Hal, before John.
Yeah, before John. Yeah,
and it seems as though they're not acknowledging Guy at all in the trailer. But again, that could just be whatever. It could be a change up in regards to the order of introduction of things. Because I don't know. There's a lot of different things that could be changed here. I'm really just want to know when this takes place, and are we at bare minimum going to see the Lantern Corps in a movie in the future, like the Supergirl. We'll probably see the Supergirl movie, honestly, more likely, since he's doing like intergalactic stuff. We'll probably see a Lantern pop up here or there in that movie because we're seeing Lobo pop up as well. So it only makes sense for the space cops to kind of pull up and be like, yeah, y'all need to relax.
Well, because I know obviously that Nathan Fillion was in the Superman movie. That was Guy Gardner there. He's a very different take on the Lanterns. I don't know where they would fit in this MCU universe. And also because everything's happening at Warner Brothers now, it's hard to say how much longer that universe is going to exist. Hopefully,
I'm not worried about I'm not worried about the universe not existing. I'm worried about the comics not existing. The universe is going to make the money. The universe has made the money so far.
It's the studio. If Warner Brothers is really like going through all kinds of stuff, I don't know what's going to happen over there, man. I don't know.
When I'm looking at Paramount buying them out and how much debt they're going to be in, they have no choice but to keep it going because nothing else is going to bring in money for them, and they need bread because they're in debt. So this is the only thing that has any kind of like momentum around it that people are excited for. And you shut this universe down, you're saying, oh yeah, we're just going to be broke. We're just going to go. We're going to go full on just making propaganda films and hope that people come up to support them and buy them out.
You think it's impossible? They won't do that.
It's not impossible. It's very possible. But I know that as much as these people are in Agent Orange's back pocket, I think they like money before anything else.
Of course they do. And so yeah, I'm hoping we get more of his content. That would be dope. Could you imagine how dope that would be if we actually see, a cameo of John Stewart or what have you in the Supergirl movie? That'd be dope. See something like that, or even see the flying squirrel in there, or a Kilowog or what have you.
We probably will. I know at bare minimum we're going to see again after this buyout. At bare minimum, we're going to see this Lantern show. We're going to see the Supergirl movie. And there's another, we're going to see the Clayface movie because these are things that they've already filmed. That's like either in editing or they're preparing for a rollout for them. Yeah. And I think depending on how well these do.
I think isn't Superman 2 in production as well, or started production?
I don't think he started production. No, I know James Gunn has confirmed that he wrote the script for it already. The script's done. I don't think he's filmed it yet. I think filming probably started like this summer for that, more than likely. I think he's keeping the Superman movies as like the summer blockbusters for the most part. Like he's just putting them out every summer.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes sense. Okay, but I mean, bottom line for me, Soups, I am actually hopeful for this. This is a good. I think what it was is that you know how much I love buddy cops. I love me some buddy cops to pieces. I love both these actors, Aaron and Kyle. I love seeing the kind of the actual banter between the two of them. It worked for me. I was on board for it. Yes, I get the idea that it didn't quite have the spectacle that most folks wanted, but I'm sure that'll come in later on. It has to. That's the whole point of the story.
It really reminds me and makes me think of something like a comparison would be like Smallville versus like the Superman movie, right?
That's exactly what it is.
Like it's grounded. You have some abilities, but it's not going to look flashy because you don't have the budget to do a Superman movie or a Superman movie style ability showcase in something like that show. But you'll have pretty well written characters. You'll have a really solid story there. Things will be grounded, But again, I understand for people that are fans like myself of the Green Lantern Corps and grew up seeing through either the animated series or the comic books all the crazy stuff they do on a casual basis with their lantern constructs, with their Heartlight constructs, going into a show where you're telling me, yeah, we might not even see these niggas fly that often. It's like, damn, that's tough. Yeah. That's tough to see.
That's real tough. I don't think it'll be the whole. There's no reality in which they'll do none of that. Because what's the point? There's no point in being a lantern if you just walk around all day and drive a car. So that they have some of that, it may have to be more earned. For example, it may have to be that you have to see them. Like it may be cool a bit that John Stewart has to, like in the third or fourth episode, he finally flies or finally transforms or finally pulls out his lantern. And because the trailer, it shows him pulling out the lantern and said the whole oath and everything else. So it's going to happen. It's inevitable.
Here's how it's going to go. I'm going to predict this. This is exactly how this show is going to go. We're going to get some of the higher budget in the first episode to establish things, like either showing John first getting the ring, or Hal finding him, or Hal getting this ring. We're going to see some of the lantern stuff as far as like the budget for the constructs in that first episode. Mm-hmm. We're going to go 4, maybe 5 episodes of them using it in minor instances, like a little green beam, like those probably fire shots off, maybe flying somewhere here and there, but it'll be more investigative. And then for episodes 7 and 8, or 6, 7, 8, that's going to be where like the rest of the budget's going to showcase. So they're going to be ready to go into like the final battle with somebody, rather that be, and I'm not sure who the villain is quite yet. Because I know we're not going to, I doubt they fight like another like Sinestro or anyone like that. So it'll probably be them fighting like some kind of bounty hunter or some kind of alien on the plane. I'm trying to think, like maybe we'll see a return of Destro, like the pirate, or a character like that. Someone who's like a minor character that you don't have to do a lot of special effects for. Yeah. That's probably what'll happen in the show. Like we'll just see like a lull for like 4 or 5 episodes where it's just like minor effects, and then the beginning and the end is where they'll just cash out with all the budget they had for the CGI for it.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. Yeah, and because I think one thing too in the lore of the Lanterns, isn't it typically that the person who gets the ring is because the previous Lantern died, and so John Stewart inherited the ring when they died. Isn't that how it goes? Or did Hal like grab it and give it and fly up there?
No, at least in the original one, if I remember correctly from my video, Hal's ring was kind of just given to him by the Guardians. The Guardians themselves handpicked Hal Jordan, because at that point, Guy Gardner broke his arm, or he was down for the count for something. It was the same thing with Guy as well. Guy came in when Hal Jordan was indisposed. So like the only Lanterns that really inherited their rings from death that I can remember, like out of the Earthlings, was Hal. Everyone else had rings given to them either by the Guardians directly. Like even Sojourner Merlane in her Far Sector run, her ring is different because it recharges on its own because she's in the Far Sector. So her ring is different from all the other Lantern rings. Or even I can't remember. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with Simon Baz and Jennifer Cruz in regards to how they got their rings as well. But and then I know what Kyle Rayner, his was also, I think, given to him as well before he became Ion.
Well, because also I know, like, for example, Abin Sur. That's the whole point of Abin Sur is he's as he's dying, and it flies to Hal and everything else. So I'm not sure how their approach is taken entirely. But I'm here for it. I mean, I think it'll probably, like you said, as far as it'll be kind of low key for the first few episodes. They had to put something in obviously the main episode, the first pilot episode, to kind of get you interested. To kind of be low key with them, using it here and there. And also, if they're trying to go, I'm not sure if they're trying to go low profile as far as they're in the middle of nowhere. So if they're trying to keep a low profile to kind of investigate this, whatever this crime is that's happening, it makes sense that they wouldn't use a whole bunch of flashy effects or the whole bunch of flashy abilities they have. And then, of course, once they find out who the villain is, they do their thing. Because I'm wondering, too, what is actually happening? They have to come on to this middle of this backwoods dirt town. What's actually happening there? They need to be there for 8 episodes.
It feels like it's going to be a similar situation to the Absolute Green Lantern story where they're just going to be in that town and something happens and they have to go investigate, but they're more so around the town because he's training John in an area that's uninhabited for the most part. Like he's training him like the same idea of like when you get a gun, you want to go shooting and you don't want to go to an official gun range. Yeah, load up the truck and head out to the middle of nowhere in the country and just shoot out there where nobody's around.
So we can use that ring and not worry about a bunch of folks. That's how powerful those rings are. I got you.
In my mind, at least. Again, that's just my own headcanon for now until the show comes out. But again,
y'all, when's it come out again?
It drops.
Look at that right quick.
They say early 2026. I don't see an exact date yet. Where's the date?
I have no date. Where's the date on that? Just curious.
The release date they don't have I don't think there's an official release date yet. It just says early August 2026, I guess.
August, okay. Yeah, Green Lantern,
yeah, I don't see an official date yet. Just like the rough estimation of when.
Oh yeah, so August 2026, which is about 4 months.
So we're gonna see. We're going to see. I'm
excited. Okay, all right. I'm here for it. And the thing is, the last show that kind of surprised me was actually not House of Dragon. It was that other Game of Thrones show that seemed very simple in a very small town. I know you haven't seen it yet. The Seven Kingdoms. It worked really well. It's a very small budget, smaller thing, smaller story, and it worked really well. So if they do the same thing with this, I'm here for it.
I'll peep it. But that leads us into the last topic for the show that I really wanted to get into and have a conversation around. And I thought you would be the perfect person to have this conversation with due to the factor of you not only being a comic book creator and invested in the culture of it, as well as at one point being a teacher within the medium or just like writing it as a whole. I was on a council summit for on Jay Penumbra's channel where it was me, Blur Without Fear, Jay Penumbra, Kaori was there, and we had a writer, Mark. What's Mark's last name? He's the writer of the book Scion. We just had a bunch of different creators and writers in the panel. And we were going over a bunch of different things in comics, but one thing we were talking about was like the difficulty in how comics are perceived and just like the overall community based around them. Because a lot of the difficulties us as minorities have within the comic industry in regards to the big two and getting representation is the fact that obviously white men are going to dominate the field. Like everybody else is a minority for the most part. And a lot of what's dictated in regards to what books are greenlit are going to be opposing or going to be to appease the mass audience there. And we were talking about how there is this like thing where kids, for the most part, aren't getting ingratiated within the medium as quickly, as well as the fact that their like, comics themselves aren't respected or seen as equal when you're looking at something like Barnes & Noble or other places where comics may be sold. They're kind of put off to the side. And that's mostly due to like design, like the fact they don't have a spine, like singles at least. Trades usually don't like treated a lot better, but singles at least. And a thing I brought up was something that I kind of got into in watching a video I got Unlucky Dreamer put out discussing why there's been a huge lack of teenage superheroes in media over the last like half decade to a decade now. And one thing I brought up was the whole idea that there aren't any third spaces anymore. Growing up, and I'm pretty sure you remember this back in, the old ye days of horse and buggy, when you leave kindergarten, when you leave like elementary school and you're getting into the age of like middle school to like high school, maybe like junior year, probably up until junior year, you are not an adult and you're also not a child and you're also developing. And when you would leave school, you would have places you could go to after school, game arcades, boys and girls clubs, rec centers, different places to where you could just be a kid and enjoy kid activities. You could read books, you could play video games, you could do whatever. You had third spaces, parks, whatever it may be. We are in an era now where the third space is nigh extinct, where boys and girls clubs don't exist in a lot of different places, and you have politicians and advocates and activists fighting to bring those back. A lot of parks are either closed down or aren't really seen as safe spaces now due to the factor of, this outside world being more dangerous with school shootings or whatever it may be. There aren't, like, comic shops as a whole, for the most part, aren't really made to be places where you can linger around that. It's more so treated like a CVS or a Walmart, where you come in, you buy your product, and you immediately leave. There's no like reading areas where kids can just pick up random books and kind of get a look at them. And when I'm looking at comics and a lot of media as a whole, I'm seeing that a lot of kids are going from childlike content, or that'd be like younger, like the Backyardigans or like younger shows, whatever it may be, and they go from there like directly into adult content. There's not too many shows like a Justice League series, right? Or a Static Show or Ben 10, where it is a show that has some adult themes that like adults can watch and enjoy, but it's made for children at the same time. It's like childlike thing, like Teen Titans Go, or adult content. And I think there's that middle space to where children or younger audiences get lost in the sauce because they're not able to experience that time frame or even build a relationship with things, because there's kind of just like things are thrown at them really quickly without understanding these concepts. I think through that third space and through content that is intended for like a teen audience, you're able to like slowly grow and ingratiate into adult themes versus just having shit thrown at you and you have to kind of figure it out. If that makes any sense. In the comic books, that's another big thing. There's no comics that like, there's no spaces that give you access to comic books that easy. One of the things I talked about having was for comic shops to invest in having more spaces within their shops where, and if you have like a over order of a certain book, let's say like all the issues for a particular book don't sell, and you just have a back catalog of stuff, make that into a makeshift library in your shop where you're allowing kids to come in, sit in that area, pick those books up for free, read them. Like, yeah, you already took an L on them. So if they break those books, it's not like you're taking 2 L's. Like, you didn't sell the books anyway and you still own them. Allow these kids to get in there and kind of read these books and get an idea of what they want to read and characters they want to gravitate toward, versus the pressure of a kid begging their parents to buy a book and they know nothing about it. They don't even know what they like at that point.
Right. Yeah,
but
100%.
That's my long rant on everything. I wanted to kind of get your perspective. I wanted to explain and set the table for you to kind of dive in there. And
that is something that I've noticed too over the years. I mean, obviously back in the day when I was a pup, long before time and space existed, me and my brother, we used to go to, I mean, you mentioned as far as third spaces go, and I'll address that first. One of the most popular third spaces, I'm not sure if it was for you and your brother, Dev, was the mall, right? We used to love going to the mall like crazy. We go to the mall all the time. And the mall would have arcades. They would have bookstores. They wouldn't have Barnes & Noble was never in the mall, but they had like Borders and Walden Books. And they were nice, larger stores. And they had comics in them. They had old school floppies, as opposed to trades. They had trades in there too, I think, but they had floppies in there. And my brother and I would go in there all the time and just read comics right there in the store. And they didn't care for the most part. But we'd also go to the arcades. And the arcades are awesome as far as like this, just hanging out. And as far as meeting around people, being around early blurs and everything else, people that were like-minded for us. And we were in middle school and high school hanging out there a lot. And it was dope. It was great. It was a safe place for us to be a kid and learn and grow and enjoy things that made us happy, different types of nerd culture for the most part. And now, like you said, Zoom generation for the most part, so kids are so, after the pandemic especially, where kids are like almost raised to see interact with people through screens, so they don't even know how to, or aren't comfortable always going out and just with random strangers and doing that kind of stuff. There are definitely some that do, but it's not nearly as common. And arcades obviously don't exist anymore. Kids don't hang out in malls near as much as they used to. They order everything online. Lots of like Walden Books closed down, Borders closed down. There was that third bookstore too that used to be around that closed down as well. It's pretty much just as far as more brick and mortar bookstores. It's like Barnes & Noble, and that's kind of it. And like you said, they don't really want people hanging out in there. Comic shops themselves, back in the day when I was a pup too, my brother and I would hang out at comic shops that actually had seating in there. They actually had old school seating. I remember when the certain books came out. For example, my favorite book of all time is Hush. When Hush came out, my brother and I sat down in the comic shop and read it and talked about it with the actual comic shop owner. It was incredibly dope. When Astonishing X-Men dropped out a few years later, Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men, we were at a Borders and we're talking about it there with some people there as well. It's the idea of being able to build a community around interacting with people in person. And that is very, very rare. You mentioned also how there's not really a middle space between being an adolescent to being an adult with the content. And you mentioned Bruce Timm's Justice League, the show. That was a really big thing because it was very much a graduated version of like Batman the Animated Series from the 90s going into the Justice League Animated Series. And now it's almost like if you look at the shows that are around for the animated series, they're pretty much adult. Like I mean, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, that's a full-blown hard R show, right? Even seeing the trailer that we talked about for Green Lantern, in that trailer, there were nonstop F-bombs. It's kind of like the content's being created more and more for adults because the content itself is being made by people my age or older. And they're not really making it for kids anymore. They're making it just for adults, other adults. And it's a weird place. If you are trying to bring in or speak to people that are young teenagers or in high school or people that are trying to go from being adolescents into adulthood, there is a lot less content for them. That's very true. And it's sad because it's becoming more and more alienating. And that's why I know, for example, at the schools I taught at, why it was so much more appealing for them to go towards manga, because manga was still trying to speak to them like young people, as opposed to assuming they were adults only with hard R type of content.
And I think that, and I'm going to sound like a socialist here saying this, but I think a lot of this is due to the capitalism aspect of things, where it's people trying to maximize profits. And who has the most money? The millennials. Y'all are old. You're a little bit older. You have disposable income. You're gonna spend that, and you got to show up to spend that money. Kids aren't spending money like that. They don't have money to spend like that. So you're not going to market things towards them because you're not going to get the same return on investment. And I think that's where it's going to be really harming in the long run for a lot of these different companies, because if you're not building out a new fan base in the next 10, 15 years, when millennials are a little bit older and maybe dying out, maybe just not able to go out as often to even spend that money, now you have an entire generation of Gen Z or Gen Alpha that you didn't build any kind of attachment to. So now they're not going to be obligated to, or feel obligated to even want to check out what you have. There's no nostalgia there for it. I go into a comic shop now, I'm seeing older men that are like your age or older. I was leaving the shop and I seen an older man park and getting ready to walk into the shop, but he couldn't have been any younger than he couldn't be any younger than like 60, 65, because he was just struggling to walk. But damn it, when he was a kid, he read books, so he's gonna get in here and read his comic books and buy his books. And so you feel that connection to it. If you don't build that connection at a younger age, when you have a brand like that, you're hurting yourself in the long run. And that goes into you being able and being willing to potentially accept a minimal profit or even take an L in order to build community and build up a new generation of fans. I'm not saying you have to do everything in knowing that it's going to be a flop. I'm not saying this to like throw money away, but I'm saying in the efforts to make content that adults can enjoy, again, also make it to where kids can watch this with their parents and not feel like they are just shoveling out like childlike material. Like, don't make it feel like an episode of The Backyardigans or Little Einsteins. Like, make it that, again, the Bruce Timm stuff is a good in between, where it's like, hey, adult themes, child material, and you can balance that out. There's a perfect way to balance that out. I don't know, it's tough. It's tough because if you don't do that, again, you're hurting me as well.
Well, no, I think of it too. Think of it this way. Obviously, for Teen Titans, like in your age, your generation, there was the original Teen Titans that was on Cartoon Network with Robin and the squad. It was very much, it was kid friendly, but still it was appealed to adults. I'm older than you, and I still watched it. I remember why it came on weekends, right? And then now they have Teen Titans Go, which is very much a lot goofier, and it's a lot kiddier show. It's so much more kiddie. I couldn't watch it. It's like making the divide between young and old is getting so much bigger that you can't really, the stuff can't appeal to both. It's harder and harder for it to appeal to both. And now they have all the shows that are for adults, where they have all kinds of very offensive language, or they have all kinds of graphic violence, that type of stuff. The bridge is gone pretty much. It's like either kids or adults. The end. There's nothing else between it, and it's sad. And like you said before too, when it comes to comic book readers, the average age of a comic book reader is 35 to 50. There are no kids in that. It's just for adults. It's pretty much, if you read these when you're younger and are now grown up, cool. Otherwise, get the hell out, which is sad. And you made a good point too, as far as trying to build in newer fans. It's the same problem that happened with Star Trek, for example. Star Trek wasn't really appealing to younger people. So all the movies and stuff will only appeal to the same generation. And as I got older and as I aged out, you think about Star Trek right now. You don't hear a lot of people talk about Star Trek. It's not that how it goes. They are trying to make those shows for them now on Paramount, and they're not doing all that great. Is that they don't know how to address it. However, with some of Star Wars kept making content for people of different generations and different ages, and it's a lot more relevant. So it's kind of a similar thing with comics and everything else. So it is a problem. I haven't had to fix it myself, but you do need to be mindful of trying to keep your audiences invested in your product over time, and and bringing in new people, new fans as well. It's important.
Honestly, I think Star Wars and the Star Trek comparison is the perfect example to your point. Because I remember me as a kid, I saw maybe like one Star Trek movie, like bits and pieces of a Star Trek show because of my granddad, but I grew up watching Star Wars content. And again, I saw the movie, like the main movies, obviously, but what really brought me into the universe was watching the animated series. The Clone Wars is the exact model that we're talking about. It's a show that has a lot of adult themes, like from self-harm to murder to questioning your morality, your ethics, whatever it may be. But it's still a child animation show that was on the Cartoon Network. And it's a show that you as an adult can still watch to this day and enjoy along with a child. From the video games, there's a lot of Star Wars media that was released, that was produced for teens to kids that adults could also consume, that also played a part into the greater universe. And because of that, now you still have super fandom, or people are just excited about any Star Wars news that drops, even beyond Gen Z, even into Gen Alpha. So in the next 10 years, I'm pretty confident Star Wars is still going to be a strong brand and IP because of that effort that went into it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you mentioned another good thing media you mentioned was the video games. Everything from the Star Wars Legos to Star Wars Unleashed to even KOTOR. KOTOR was very much a teen. Teens were really into that game too. It wasn't just adults. It was a old school KOTOR. It was very much for Knights of the Republic. It was a game that people of multiple generations and ages did enjoy playing. And for the most part, like Star Trek doesn't have that. Star Trek is very much just, we're trying to tailor make these things for older people, and that's it. And so now you've lost an entire fan base because of that. So yeah, it's very important to try to find a way to bring in and cater to younger fans, different people. I mean, we know we give the MCU a massive hard time. I get it, but the MCU did a really good job of being a 4-quadrant, which is of course young, old, male, and female. That's why it has so many fans for all those movies for a decade or what have you. You have to do this if you're trying to have your brand survive and endure. You have to be mindful of these things. I'm not the biggest marketing guy. You actually are better at this in our company than I am, Dev. But it is important. It does have a significance.
And I do think another thing we haven't really spoken on as much that, funny enough, kind of plays into our dynamic is the idea that there's not as big of a crossover, right, in regards to this community aspects, to where these older adults aren't watching these kid shows, and these kids, at least at that moment in time, they shouldn't be. They're not watching the adult-oriented shows at all. So you're not seeing too many overlaps in regards to even just the older generation talking to the younger generation about their experience as a nerd. One of the things I love the most when I go into a comic shop is when I'm talking to somebody older there, they'll tell me about, oh yeah, well, I remember when I was a kid and I was collecting them and I went to the shop and bought this book for 25 cents, or this story was happening at this point, and this is my perspective when I was your age. Like, hearing those stories and hearing that history is good there. You're building that community and you have a respect for your elders in that aspect of things. When you have this lack of middle ground content, you're creating this divide that just makes everyone feel even more alienated, where you don't feel like you have a place there. Because now you see adults in this space as adversarial in nature, because they don't want shit to do with your shit, with your kid shit, and you don't want shit to do with their adult shit. And then that cycle just continues once the kid turns into an adult, and it's just this endless cycle. But versus back in the day, granted, comic shops aren't always the safest place for newer fans, especially for women. But in certain shops where there is a safe space, you at bare minimum had this idea that, you built this community there. I keep shouting them out, and I hopefully can get them more clout. Oxford Comics and Games and Collectibles here in Atlanta, my main LCS, they do a really good job of making sure that like the staff they have is really diverse, from Black and brown people to women to queer people, whatever it may be, to people that's just open. And they'll have conversations with different customers about the books. They'll promote what they're reading. They have this thing I really enjoy where, like, in the back of the shop on the wall, they have the new arrivals, and then they have the stuff from last week. But on the right side, they have like the picks of the week of the employees there. So if you have friends or you like a particular one, the books that they read that week, they'll put those books in their slot. So like one of the people there read my book and enjoyed Reaper, so he put Reaper in his slot for that week, and people will check that out because the employees are also building a certain relationship with the constant people that are coming in and out of the shop. So again, when you build that community, and it's going to help you in the short term and the long term for the most part.
100%. Yeah, and that's something I love when they do that. They actually did that at some of the comic shops in Charlottesville. They also have hobby shops. I'm sure you've been to hobby shops. So hobby shops do actually have tabletop games that are being played. They actually have areas open with tabletop games, and sometimes they will have floppies, actual comics or trades in there themselves. So you can actually do that. They are trying to build the actual community aspect still, and they're trying to teach young people how to play tabletop games, like D&D and what have you. So there are some glimmers of hope out there. But you're right, though. It was a different thing back in the day when, obviously with gatekeeping now being more prevalent. But as far as people that were older trying to introduce and educate young people on what it is that makes this medium, comics or what have you, so appealing, so interesting. I remember when I was younger too, and I was first getting into comics, I was a little behind, and people were talking about Frank Miller, for example, how Frank Miller, what he did with Batman Year One, and then Batman The Dark Knight Returns and everything. And as I was first getting into comics, I was okay, cool. And it was just an older dude. He wasn't that much older. He's actually in his 20s, like late 20s or so. But I remember just having someone trying to tell me which books, making recommendations essentially. Because there were no, when I was first getting into comics, there were no YouTube videos and everything else. It was pretty much just walk in there, and there's a Wizard magazine maybe, and that's it. And so there wasn't some old head. You'd be on your own. And they took pride in actually helping people get into it, as opposed to gatekeeping everything that you had to do. So it's a very different thing now.
I think YouTube has been like the only saving grace for this whole situation, is because it's a platform that usually younger people are on historically, and you have creators there that would give you entire rundowns or explanations on characters and stories. You kept the interest there a little bit, but again, people aren't really reading the books often when you do things like that, like just giving an entire one-to-one covering of the book versus having commentary on it, which is what I try to promote. When you're doing that, you're keeping an interest there. But again, it's like life support, I feel like, in the conversation, where it's like, yeah, people are still somewhat interested because of the shows and games, but they're not going to read the books. And people in general don't want to read the comics. They just want the show. They just want the game, without understanding you need to support the source material first to show them that you have interest in wanting the other show or the adaptation or whatever else it may be. Yeah. But it's tough.
It's the accessibility, Dev. Like back in the day, again, the only option I had, my brother and I had, to these books was to go to the stores and get them in person and actually hard copies, right? There was no such thing as being to read things online or order them online. It didn't. I mean, you could kind of order them, I guess, but no one did that. So now people don't have to go into the brick and mortar stores. They barely exist anyways. They order everything online or read them digitally, or like you said, even have people explain the books on YouTube or everything to their faces. It's a very, very different thing. It's the way people access their entertainment is so different now too. It encourages isolation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that, as well as the idea that comics themselves, the books themselves, like the collector scene, which honestly almost led to the death of comics for the most part, if I remember correctly, like in the 80s and the maybe early 90s. Yeah, where it was a whole idea of just like people, like DC and Marvel, like were printing more books, so people didn't see any value in collecting them anymore. Yeah. And again, it was like this idea that comics became this collectible item versus just like a story medium. I think the original dream of comics as regards to them, or at least what should be the dream of comics, them being like a medium of storytelling, was lost. Like I should be able to rip up a comic and just feel cool. Like I ripped it, it's just paper. It's not just the book itself, and the product isn't important. It's what's inside of this thing. There's a story that's being told in it. Looking at comics as just a product versus a medium of storytelling, it's what's killing a lot of the stuff. And again, I think you can have both. You can have it to where, hey, I have a static issue one that's valuable monetarily, but why it's valuable to me isn't because this thing is people would spend money to buy this thing. It's because I love Milestone. I love this character. I love what they stand for. That's why it's important to me and why I'm not going to sell it. It has financial value intrinsically, yes, but the value is in what I look at it as and how I feel about it and why I want it. That's why I want it, not because people will pay a lot of money for it. And again, once we get to the point where we can value comics for the storytelling, I think we'll be in a better place.
Yeah, 100%.
Culturally.
And you're right. That was why the fall that happened back in the day in the 90s is because they were printing up so many different variations of these comics, like Marvel especially. They kept doing it so much, and they were printing way more books. There was a lot more supply than there was demand, obviously, because they were seen as more of a product, and they were hoping people would buy these books just to have collector's items, and people would buy them and think they'd actually sell them back, and it didn't work out that way. The value was placed on the idea of what the books could be as opposed to what the books actually were, as far as actual story, the content, what it meant to the buyers themselves. And that's why indie books are doing as good as they are, because they actually have engaging stories by people that are writing them that actually means a lot to the people themselves too. So hopefully some of these ideas will of course carry over into multiple aspects, multiple different distributors and everything else, studios. But it is very much like you said, Milestone, for example, with the Static Shock. It's important to you not because some corporation tells you it's worth X amount of money. We go onto eBay, you can sell it for $100. No, it's important to you because the character means a lot to you and the story means a lot to you. That's how it should be. That's what art should be.
Agreed. But yeah, y'all, that's all I had. Do you have anything else you wanted to cover or discuss before we got ready to go out of here?
Yeah. Again, if you have a beard, make sure it's trimmed up. Keep your beard game strong. Long-lived beards. But no, I'm good. How about you?
Last thing I'll say, and I've done it on each platform. I'm not sure where Buddy watches it, but shout out to Ted Young. I went by my LCS yesterday to pick up a book and spend money that I didn't need to spend. But it's an addiction for me at this point. And they let me know, like, hey man, you have a super fan. I'm like, what are you talking about? They said, hey, there's this guy that came in last week. And he let us know that he drove like from 2 hours. He heard, he saw a video that you're on your YouTube channel about you saying that the book was in the shop. So he drove 2 hours and came and bought 3 different covers for the book. I wanted us to let you know that he came and left his name, whatever it may be. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. So thank you so much, Ted Young.
How did it make you feel, man? Let's get into this. How did it make you feel knowing that you had someone that did that? Can you? That's wild.
I mentioned in the video I put out on social media where it's like an idea that it's kind of surreal. Because first and foremost, brother, you drove 2 hours in Atlanta traffic. This is Atlanta traffic ain't no joke. On a casual day, traffic could just be backed up like that. So the fact you took that risk to drive from 2 hours either in or outside of the city to in the city, because the shop is like in the middle of downtown Atlanta. It's like in the mix. So traffic can get pretty wicked over there. So the fact you did that, you drove that length and you spent that money, that's something that like I only see people do for things that they're really passionate about and they love, whether that be a Batman book or a movie that they're really looking forward to. Like you only drive and spend that much money for things you enjoy. So the fact that somebody could enjoy either my content from YouTube or whatever it may be, to even the book itself that much, so it meant a lot to me in ways I'm not even like fully understanding yet. So thank you.
How does it feel, man? Like, I mean, like, real quick, you are, you're an aspiring creator, developer, and also you grew up admiring the head of other comic book writers and creators and artists and that kind of stuff, and now you're in a position yourself at the tender age of 26 where you are the person that other people look up to. Other people you're aspirational in that sense, brother. So how does it feel like having the shoe on the other foot where you are the one that's inspiring?
Look up is a strong word. I don't think it's that crazy, but to the idea of
2 hours ATL traffic.
I don't know. It's humbling for sure. In the idea that my art and my story could make somebody feel anything, let alone inspire an action to want to go emoting the action of wanting to go purchase the thing. It's again, it's still surreal. I think there's a lot of emotions I'm not quite sure how I feel yet. It's one of those things of like shock first, and then like I'm happy, obviously, but I'm not sure I haven't like fully processed all the emotions quite yet, because I guess maybe I've been ripping and running still. But when it hits, it'll hit. Now I'll have more dialogue around it, but it's surreal. I think it's the best way to put it for now, until I can understand how I feel about it.
What I wish, because it's one thing that I did have the privilege. I'm much older than you, much older than you. I have had the privilege of meeting some people over the years that actually are fans of my stuff, that have cosplayed as my characters and seeing how they react to it. Mm-hmm. What I wish is that you had been able to see Ted Young in person. Hopefully you will. Because I want you to do a full blown signing at some of these places. But being able to see people, being able to see fans, actual fans, actually come up to you and say, "Oh my gosh, Mr. Wilson, it's so good to see you," or "This book meant this for me," or seeing how they interpret your work. and actually kind of seeing how much it means to them, that's when it's like, oof, that's when it's like, it hits different, man. It hits different. I know you've done all kinds of things in your life. You have you have a very, very strong beard game, but when you actually have fans, like actually seeing them actually react, how your work affects them, I can't wait for that to happen, man. I can't wait for you to have that hit you.
Yeah, we'll see it. I know. It's confirmed now. I've already talked to the owner. Like, I'm going to do a signing for issue 2 at the shop. I just have to, once issue 2 is done, get with them and set up a time, days, and actually get like a little bit of a shipment of the books in person, so I can have some on hand signed, and also give some of them in the shop for consignment as well. It'll be a thing, but. So I'll probably end up seeing Ted Young in person at that point. If he drove 2 hours to buy the book, he'll probably drive 2 hours to come to the signing, more than likely.
Yeah. Record it, man. Make sure you record that. I want to see you record. I see you cry on camera.
Yeah, I'm gonna recruit a homie or two to come record this whole thing for me as we go through it. But yeah, brother, that was an experience. But
yeah, it was.
Again, thank you, Mr. Young. Appreciate you, and anybody else who's bought a copy of the book. I think at this point, like, between the sales from the site, physical, the digital copies, and then the sales from the shop, we probably sold close to 200 books, maybe copies of Reaper.
No, at least if you're going back to because it started selling at the end of last year, right? So at least 200 copies.
Yeah. So it's
lots of folks are buying multiple, like they're buying because there's 3 variants, so they're buying. Yeah. So if you look at that way too.
Yeah, man. So again, I'm forever blessed and eternally grateful. So thank y'all so much for that. But that's it though. Again, this has been another episode of the Internet Podcast. Again, y'all, sorry for the delay. There's been a lot of stuff going on in life between all of us, and then especially with Otis recently. He will be back this next week, and we'll be back to consistency. And again, thank you to everyone for helping us get to 1K subs on the channel. That's been something that's a goal we've had for a while now. We've been shooting for the 1K.
This is the first episode we mentioned that because the last one got botched up. Yeah, so thanks y'all. Thank you so much, y'all. We appreciate that.
Yeah, we're going to plan to do like a live stream with all of us at some point to kind of celebrate that. But for now, all I have for you guys is our deepest thank yous and thanks for helping us get there. It's been a long journey. And if you go back to some of the older beginning episodes, you'll see the journey and growth from content creation from then to now, and where we've been over the last like 6 years, damn near at this point.
Damn.
Yeah, brother.
We're both getting old now, man. That's.
Hey, bro. But again, this has been another episode of the Then and Now Podcast. Y'all remember forever and always.
You're listening to the Then and Now Podcast.
And we'll see y'all next time. Peace, y'all.
Peace.